Hey guys, what's going on? James here. I just recorded this whole video and I found out that my audio wasn't working, so I'm back again with another video talking about the best Buccaneers at every single position on the team, and today we are talking about wide receiver as well as tight end. Now for wide receiver, this one was very difficult. Some honorable mentions include guys like Vincent Jackson, Keyshawn Johnson, and Joey Galloway, but in my mind it came down to two guys. Now the first guy I'm going to talk about here real quick is pretty much either second or, he holds a pretty decent amount of these receiving records. He's right up there. That is Mark Carrier. It is not Mark Carrier. I did not pick Mark Carrier. I know a lot of people probably thought it was going to be him and whatnot, but I decided not to go with Mark Carrier. I decided to go with a guy who's actually still on the team and he's still, etching out his career. I decided to go with Mike Evans. Now for the tight end position, this one's a little bit easier. I actually decided to go with Jimmie Giles, and some honorable mentions include Ron Hall as well as Dave Moore. And fun fact, Dave Moore has actually played in the most games ever by a Tampa Bay Buccaneer with 190. Now with all of that being said, let's get started with Mike Evans. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, why Mike Evans? It's too early, and, a lot of people might say Mark Carrier, and to be fair to Mark Carrier, he actually beats Mike Evans in all-time receiving catches and receiving yards. However, Mike Evans wins in receiving touchdowns. The reason I went with Mike Evans for this pick is because that he's been able to do it in only 4 years, and he's, give him half a season next year, and he's probably going to be number 1 or number 2 at least on all of these stats. He should be number 1 in receiving touchdowns in half a season. He should be probably number 2 or number 1 in catches and number 2 or number 1 in receiving yards by halfway through next season easily. So that's one of the reasons I picked Mike Evans, because he's just been so dominant for such a short amount of time, and he's just been so consistently dominant. It's been pretty crazy. But again, shout out to Mark Carrier. His best season, he had 1,400 receiving yards as well as 9 touchdowns, which got him to his one and only Pro Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So again, shout out to Mark Carrier. But Mike Evans was drafted in the first round of the 2014 NFL Draft, and he is coming in at 6'5", 231 pounds, a very big wide receiver. Now, Mike Evans is that type of wide receiver who can just go up and get it. He bullies cornerbacks. He's taller than pretty much every single cornerback, if not every single cornerback in the league. He can just go up and grab it. He's a red zone monster. If you need a guy to throw a fade route to or something along those lines, he is your guy. He is just makes some ridiculous catches and just some phenomenal big man plays. He's phenomenal. He's just phenomenal, and I know he's only been with the Buccaneers for 4 seasons, but how dominant he's been in those 4 seasons, and I'll break down the numbers in a minute here, but just how dominant he's been has just been utterly mind-boggling to me. Now, up to this point, he has only made 1 Pro Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers up to this point in his career, and that was back in 2016, where he also was a second-team All-Pro. Now, he has had at least 1,000 receiving yards in all 4 years of his career up to this point. No other Buccaneers wide receiver has ever done that. Not Mark Carrier, not Vincent Jackson, not Keyshawn Johnson, not Joey Galloway. Mike Evans is the only one. Now, he barely squeaked by last year with 1,001 receiving yards, but guess what? Still counts on the leaderboards. But anyway, looking back, his best season was in 2016, where he had 1,321 receiving yards as well as 12 freaking touchdowns. And fun fact, that is not the only time he has ever had 12 touchdowns in his career. His rookie season, he also had 12 touchdowns as well. That's ridiculous. He had 24 touchdowns in 2 years. Dear Lord. And like I said, Mike Evans is just the kind of bullyish wide receiver who can just go up and grab it. And looking into his stats for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of all time, he's right up there. Like I said, one of the main reasons I picked Mike Evans is because he's only had 4 seasons, and he is so high ranking in terms of the Buccaneers receiving categories, it's actually pretty ridiculous. So, looking into his receiving receptions of all time, he actually ranks 3rd already. He ranks 3rd for receptions all time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with 309. In terms of receiving yards ranking of all time, he's actually 3rd as well with 457. Like I said, Mark Carrier is beating him in both those categories, but Mark Carrier does not beat him in receiving touchdowns of all time. Mike Evans is 32, which is 2nd of all time. We'll be talking about number 1 in a minute. But he has actually played in only 61 total games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which, like I said, ranks 33rd all time. He hasn't played for the Buccaneers that much, but just the fact that he has been able to garner these types of numbers with only only playing in 61 total games. That's pretty crazy. Now, in terms of just franchise records, he holds a couple of them. He has the most receiving touchdowns in a season by any Buccaneers player with 12. Okay, that's pretty good. He has the most receiving touchdowns by a rookie in a season with 12. Like I said, he's had 12 receiving touchdowns twice in his career. Oh my goodness. And he has the most consecutive receiving 1,000-yard seasons ever by a Tampa Bay Buccaneer with 4. So, statistically, Mike Evans has been very, very dominant in a very short amount of time. But let me know down in the comment section below, do you prefer Mark Carrier or Vincent Jackson or Keyshawn Johnson or Joey Galloway? You know, or do you agree with the Mike Evans pick? I know a lot of people might say that's very early for this, and it's like, oh, you know, he hasn't had time to etch out his career. But to be honest, give him one more season, and he's probably going to be #1 in most of these categories, if not all of them anyway. So just give me a break. But moving on to the best tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, this wasn't really an option. Wasn't a hard choice in my opinion. It's Jimmie Giles. Now honorable mentions Ron Hall, like I said, who's actually, you know, not too bad. You know, he's not too bad. He probably has half the numbers that Jimmie Giles has. And then Dave Moore, again, played the most games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I saw that and I was like, what the heck? But Dave Moore. So shout out to Dave Moore. Also, Jimmie Giles was drafted in the 3rd round of the 1977 NFL Draft. He was coming in at 6'3", 239 pounds. And if you actually put him in today's NFL, he's actually a little bit undersized in terms of just tight ends. You know, you guys usually think of like, oh, 6'6", 6'7", weighs like 250 some pounds. You know, like look at O.J. Howard. O.J. Howard's, you know, freaking 6'6", weighs I think 242 pounds. So you think of guys who are just a little bit taller and are just bigger. Jimmie Giles is kind of built like a wide receiver in a way, and he's very comparable to actually a guy I just talked about recently, James Wilder. They're actually very similar in size, and they actually played together for a little bit, so that's actually, hey, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool in my opinion. However, Jimmie Giles wasn't originally a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not sure if a lot of you know this, but Jimmie Giles was actually selected by the Houston Oilers in 1977, and then he only lasted there 1 season and then made his way at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, what I like about Jimmie Giles so much is that he was primarily used as a blocking tight end by the coaching staff. This eventually lost him favor with the coaching staff because, you know, he just, I don't know why, but like he eventually just lost favor with the coaching staff, left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and went off and didn't really do much after that. But he was supposed to be a blocking tight end during his time with Tampa, but he was still able to show that he had a great ability to be able to catch the ball and just overall be a productive receiving target as well. And he's actually one of the rare cases where a player comes to Tampa Bay and is very freaking good, rather than them leaving and playing really good for other teams. He's one of the very, very rare cases where we get a player, he plays very good for us, and we actually keep him for a while. Thank the dear Lord for that. Now, he actually made the Pro Bowl 4 times for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during his time with the team. He actually played from 1978 all the way to 1986, and he was a member of the Buccaneers Ring of Honor. He was inducted in 2011 versus the Carolina Panthers. So, you know, it's pretty good. And like I said, he did go to the playoffs a couple of times during his time with Doug Williams, James Wilder, stuff like that, but he was never able to win a Super Bowl, and he actually never had a season under 300 receiving yards with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's pretty good considering that they wanted to primarily use him as a blocking tight end. Now, when you talk about Jimmie Giles, you can't really talk about him without talking about his best year, which was 1981, when he had 786 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, which got him to one of his 4 Pro Bowls with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And like I said, I cannot stress this enough. Jimmie Giles came to us and was productive. You know, he didn't have a productive first year with the Houston Oilers. He came to us, and that was basically the highlight of his career. Not a lot of players can say that the highlights of their career were playing for Tampa Bay. You know, that's very few, like John Lynn. Though not very few. There's a handful, but you know, most of the time, you know, especially recently, we talk about players who leave and go off and join these other teams and win Super Bowls and have great seasons. You know, freaking LeGarrette Blount, Darrelle Revis, you know, all these other players. You know, I'm just, those are the 2 that come off of my top of my head. Aqib Talib. I just hit my microphone. I'm so sorry. Aqib Talib. You know, a handful of these other guys. You know, they go off and they go be productive players with these other teams. Jimmie Giles is one of the only guys. Jimmie Giles is one of the guys who came to us and was very productive. But now that we've taken a chance to look at his story and all of his accolades for the Buccaneers, let's take a second to look at his stats. Break down these. To keep in mind, he actually, in terms of tight ends, he's #1 for all of these stats minus games played. But this is just in total of all receiving targets that the Buccaneers have had over the years. So whenever you put it like that, it's actually a little bit more impressive considering, like I said, the coaching staff wanted to use him as a blocking tight end. So in terms of receiving yards, Jimmie Giles actually ranks 5th all-time with 4,300 receiving yards. And in terms of receiving touchdowns, he's actually #1 with 34, so a little bit above Mike Evans, as you guys can see. It's only by 2, so Mike Evans should figure to beat that record in like probably 3 games or something like that. But Giles has 34, very impressive. And in terms of receiving receptions, he is actually 9th with 279. So that's where you kind of see that using him as more of a blocking tight end fits into play there. He had, you know, 5th receiving yards, 1st receiving touchdowns, only 9th in catches, so that kind of sucks. I'm sure if they actually primarily use him as a receiving tight end, he'd probably be #1 in all these categories, but, you know, that's not the point. The point is that he was able to do, you know, these phenomenal yards and these phenomenal touchdowns with, you know, not a whole lot of catches. And he actually has played in 121 games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is 4th all time. That's pretty impressive. So we've actually mentioned #1, which was Dave Moore. We've mentioned we've mentioned #4 now, which was Jimmie Giles, and we mentioned it was either, I'm pretty sure it was James Wilder who was like #2. I think James Wilder was #2. So actually there's still #3 floating around, which we'll talk about #3 way later in this series. But yeah, so we're actually almost rounding out the top 5 here in overall games played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Jimmie Giles is right up there with #4. But let me know what you think about this down in the comments section below, guys. Do you feel that Mike Evans was the right choice for the best wide receiver of all time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or do you feel it should have been a guy like Mark Carrier or Vincent Jackson or Keyshawn Johnson or Joey Galloway? I just feel Mike Evans was the right pick because he has all these impressive numbers and all these decent records and, you know, and just all this stuff in 4 years. That's awesome in my opinion. That's very impressive. And what do you think about Jimmie Giles? Do you feel he was the right pick, or do you feel maybe Ron Hall should have been the pick, or Dave Moore? Or maybe it's just your guys' personal preference of who you liked more. I kind of delve into the stats during these series and just see like who's the best all-time stats-wise, but maybe, you know, the eye of the beholder, I was going to say. I don't know, maybe just like looking at them on the field is more impressive than anything their stats could ever say. You know, just let me know. Maybe you guys just have a personal preference. You know, again, let me know down in the comment section below. I do hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and in the next video we should probably be talking about, I don't know if I'm going to do offensive line in general or not. I might just do offensive tackles. I'm still not sure yet. But again, let me know what you guys think about this down in the comment section below. I do hope you all enjoyed. And as always, I will see you in the next video. But until then, goodbye for now, guys. See ya. Also, shout out to Travis from Bucco's Locker for shouting me out. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.